So thanks for doing this. As you saw, I like to bring up case studies of transformation from around the world. So I thought we could treat ZDF Studios as a case study in transformation. Is that okay with you?
That's absolutely okay. And first of all, thank you for doing this session.
My pleasure.
I've been following and admiring you for quite some time, and you're one of the smartest and most innovative observer of our industry. And thanks for all the input we get from you on the various conferences. Very inspiring.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Probably, if I may, just a little preliminary remark, because we sometimes get confused with the broadcast as ZDF.
Sure.
So ZDF Studios is a separate organization. The broadcaster ZDF is our shareholder. But what we are doing is we are distributing content, basically or mainly ZDF content, but also third-party content throughout the world. We produce content with our affiliated companies, and we also provide certain services, including channel management services to ourselves as well as to our mother company.
So you're the commercial entity.
We're the commercial
housed
arm
within ZDF.
Yeah, and you mentioned BBC Studios on one of your charts, so we are a mini version, so to speak, of BBC.
But you have a massive library of hundreds of thousands of hours.
Absolutely.
One of the largest libraries on the planet, right?
Well, we tend to say we have exclusive access to the shelf space of ZDF, and the broadcaster has been founded 61 years ago, so you can imagine
all that
long shelves.
Right. So distributing content as a studio at this day and age is very difficult because, as I was saying earlier, people are buying fewer shows. Obviously, ZDF buys from you, but the need or the shelf space for traditional broadcasters and pay TV outlets around the world is not what it used to be. But you, ZDF Studios in particular, has a long tradition of being out ahead of the technological curve. So one of the things I wanted to talk about as a case study for ZDF is you seem to adopt and adapt to new platforms the second they launch. So you were one of the first to be on iTunes, one of the first to be on YouTube, one of the first to be in the Google Play, one of the first to be on Fast. Is that part of the culture at ZDF Studios? Is this test and learn, this risk-taking appetite?
Well, I don't know if we were the first, but we try to move early, and we have to learn. And luckily enough, our organization recognized what we see as the main topic here at this conference, the transformation, pretty early. It's not a transformation which happened overnight, as we all know, but it has been slowly growing basically to digitalization, which has been driving fragmentation, and distribution costs have become zero more or less. But now we have kind of a pivoting point reached, especially this year. And over the last couple of years, I think nearly 10 years, we really tried and tested. And a kind of small situation, with the comfort, and I have to admit that, with the comfort of having a very, very healthy legacy business. So that gave us the freedom to experiment and also stop experiments because they didn't work out. But today we are experimenting across probably 10 to 20 different digital platforms, and running currently about 100 channels live on these platforms, and have more in the pipeline. But all are being monitored, whether they are successful, what we can learn from them if they are successful, why they're successful, but also the opposite. Because I think in this transformation phase where we're currently in, nobody has the recipe for ultimate success. We have to take risks, we have to learn, and also the discussion with the streamers here. Everybody's experimenting with new partnerships and trying new business models, but we don't know if they're long-lasting business models. And the only recipe probably to go ahead is to test and to try and to learn.
But don't you feel that a lot of the media ecosystem, and by this I don't just mean the networks, I mean individual producers, they feel that they can't get past that test and learn phase. The blocker is, I don't want to try it, I don't want to know, I'd rather try to keep doing what I'm doing. Do you feel that resistance out there in the marketplace as much as I have?
I'm not sure if I'm ever getting your point.
Well, I mean, it feels like traditional media players don't seem to want to adapt. So first there was this resistance to fast. Now there is this resistance to social video. It seems like there is this fear of testing and learning because they might find out, I don't know, that it doesn't work or it isn't successful or...
Well, at least what I observe is that there's a change of paradigms. Probably this year. I completely agree with you when I go back to 24. Exclusivity was a very valuable term. I think the value of exclusivity has come down, and everybody has understood that probably the new paradigm is content everywhere. And but still, you're talking about debunking the myth of cannibalization. It's still in their heads. If I put my content out elsewhere, it might cannibalize the initial channel or the niche.
But that's not what you're finding out, is it?
No, we're finding out the opposite.
The opposite, right.
You mentioned a study, and we have conducted smaller studies, but what we found out is that we have complementary audiences. So we have the main channel audience, especially if we're talking content for our shareholder, for ZDF, and if we put that content out on other platforms, for example, fast channels with hardware manufacturers, we definitely can prove that the overlap between the audiences is negligible.
Right, and in fact, what winds up happening is the whole total audience tends to go up as a result. When
we get, as you also said, we gain new audiences which probably wouldn't have watched that content before on the what you call traditional media outlets,
and therefore new revenues as well. Correct.
Not for us, we have to distinguish our shareholder is not revenue driven. Right. It is a publicly funded broadcaster, but we are a commercial organization, the commercial arm, and of course, we're making money from it.
Well, and so that gets to something I was saying during my presentation, which is this picks and shovels problem. I was talking to Lynette from your organization earlier, and I think part of what keeps the transformation in media from happening at the pace that it should is this ingrained infrastructure where we sell materials to each other for broadcast, and people are holding on to that ecosystem probably longer than it should. But you're undergoing a major technological transformation inside studios right now because you have so much content that you have to distribute to now 107 different digital channels, you said. That must be complicated, difficult, expensive, but necessary, right?
Absolutely. So, speaking to your first point, I think that's probably a very general issue, which I'm sure can be observed in any transformation phase. If you go back in history of business for the last 100 years, that companies which have legacy business try to protect their legacy business as long as they can, because they know what they're doing, they have the cost structure to run this legacy businesses, and to a certain extent, it also makes sense. But everybody being in such a situation must be aware that you can get stuck into the situation and run into a dead-end road if you do not at the same time look at the opportunities arising from new business models and the transformation which is happening in the marketplace. In our case, that means, yes, we have also a legacy business. And of course, yes, we want to protect it and try to make as much revenues and profit from our legacy business, which is in a very, let's say, condensed way, selling finished tape shows to broadcasters and streamers around the world. We call it our B2B business, and our structures have been set up to cater that kind of business in many ways, both the organizational structure as well as our technical infrastructure, so that we can deliver according to the needs of such clients. But the needs of the new clients, of the platforms, if you deliver to Apple, if you deliver to Amazon, if you...
These are all different standards, right?
Standards, if you deliver to YouTube, if you have intermediaries whom you're working with who are kind of serving you, they all have different standards, and we have to be very, very efficient because we're talking about fragmentation here in terms of size of the business. It's not the bulk business where you do 6 or even 7-digit numbers in one sale anymore, which is a thing way of the past. We're talking much smaller numbers, so you have to make sure from a pure financial point of view that the costs associated with such transactions is low, which means you have to be efficient. You have to have a super lean and super smart digital infrastructure which can cater the needs of the new client. clients, and building such infrastructure, which you don't find as a ready-made product in the marketplace out there, means that you have to invest. And it is not a small invest.
No,
and you have to train your
these
staff
investments
as well.
are necessary.
Yeah.
I think people don't. That's the other part is, well, this business is declining.
Yeah.
This business is growing, but it's not yet a one-for-one trade. Should I be investing money in this new business despite the fact that it's not there yet? But you don't have a choice, right?
That's my point. Yeah, you don't have a choice. And I think in one textbook I saw that if you're a very good manager of your business, you're making not a Y move where the legacy business is declining and then the new business is going up, but you're making the Y to an X so that you're building the new business while the old has not yet declined. Very difficult challenge. But I think your data speaks for itself. Yeah? The transformation is for real. The old world will not come back. So probably 2-3 years ago, when I talked to a lot of industry colleagues, we were mostly of the opinion, oh, we have seen the downturn, we have seen the crisis 2-3 times before, and it's just an upswing, it's a cyclical downturn, it will come back. No, it will not come back in the way we have seen it in the last 2 or 3 crisis times. It will come back in a different way.
Very different.
You showed it. Yeah? The world population is growing, it is young, and there is definitely a need and appetite for audiovisual content, no question at all. And the number of mobile devices, digital devices is growing every day, and consumption of moving image is growing. But you have to adapt your business models to that.
I think there's this misperception that younger audiences don't want the types of content that you're putting on the television. In reality, what winds up happening is the second you take that professionally produced television content and you put it on social platforms, like I showed for the Hot Show, younger audiences will go to it. They will watch the same things that their older counterparts are. They just have to watch it differently.
Yeah, yes, and as you said, and you showed that data that long form content on YouTube is a very highly consumed segment on the platform, and we have, for example, documentary channels on YouTube, and audiences, especially young audience, they love documentary. Yeah. They watch it. They watch 45 minutes. They watch an hour. Or watch 1 hour 15 long documentaries, and even put commentaries and engagement below that, and say, "Great, mate." Side aspect, you see a lot of AI-generated documentary content these days on YouTube, and the communities, they really appreciate man-made content because they currently are absolutely able to distinguish between man-made content and AI content.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and that asks a question about production norms. I think, one of the reasons why people love ZDF Studios content is because it is so highly produced, because it is expensive.
Yeah.
But then you see 1 billion hours or 500 million hours of YouTube being watched per month, podcasts being watched on YouTube, on TV. Doesn't that ask for a recalibration of production norms? Aren't we going to have to find a mix of high-end production and low-end production to put out there?
Yep.
It can't all be $100,000 per minute anymore.
Nope. I think that is a very, very key question for the whole industry. In my terms, I tend to speak of the bathtub shape of the content. Yeah? So the mid-priced content is doomed to vanish. We will see a shift to basically
very expensive
low end and high end. Low end in this ecosphere which you described is understandable. It's also going forward. Any producer of such content is not taking any huge financial risks, so you can take risks. You can produce. The content creators are doing that. They're stepping up, but only until a certain level. As you said, $100,000 per minute, which is a huge budget, but let's say from a European point of view, if you do a drama series where you have a budget of, let's say, 2 million per episode, is quite a high budget. The key question is here, how are you going to refinance that investment going forward? I don't see the mechanics or the business models to do that yet. So again, observing, learning, testing is here the headline for me. But if we want to, and I'm sure the audience still wants some high-end content, some great made feature films and series, we have to keep an eye on the financing methods.
Well, what wound up happening, though, is during the streaming wars, we made too much.
Yeah.
Right? We can't.
Yeah, it was clogged. Yeah, the market was clogged.
Too much premium content.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is now people are reverting and watching shorter, less expensive videos in addition to the high-end premium stuff. But do you think? Do you see yourself? I don't think you're yet making stuff direct for YouTube. Yeah.
No,
right?
not yet. It's actually that's not our business model. When it comes to our production arm, we are
primarily for the television.
For the television, we'll seek to have our production cost pre-financed by a commissioner or by a co-production team or whatever. The YouTube model resembles more the theatrical film model where somebody take a risk and take. Well, you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
And but probably we'll have to do it soon. Yes, and we'll have to change our mindset in this regard as well.
Yeah, I asked that because you are now creating channels that go direct to consumers. So one of the major, we talked about the technological infrastructure shift there, talked about the fact that you have a test and learn mentality and culture when it comes to platforms and new platforms being launched. But you're really reorienting the way, I mean, your business is selling content.
Yeah.
Most of the time, for the vast majority of the history of your company, you've been selling content to third parties, B2B.
Yes. Yeah.
Now suddenly you've invented a whole new department that goes B2C.
Exactly.
Business to consumer, direct to consumer. Yeah. What was the genesis of that? How is that construct working differently than what you've done in the past?
Well, first of all, as you described earlier on, we had the good situation that we have been able to do baby steps and learn for the last couple of years. But now, as the transformation accelerated, and if you look at all the statistics from companies like, I don't know, Ampere Analysis, Parrot, whomever you name them, the decline in what we call B2B is very steep, and it's not coming to an end.
Number of commissions and
purchases. And it's also very, very logical. Yeah. Commercial broadcasters are suffering from a decrease in ad spend. Public service broadcasters are suffering from funding issues. Streamers are coming to a saturation level. So all of them are spending less money.
It's also a consolidation.
It's a consolidation going on. So very explainable why this happens. And at the same time, follow the money, as they say. You see that a lot of advertising spend is going to AVOD channels. Yeah. So what do if you run a business? You follow the money and go into the AVOD space at the end of the day.
But that's a dramatically different business.
Yeah.
And if you look at what happened to Hollywood over the last 10 years in particular, the growing pains, the difficulties, the challenges that they're having is moving from a B2B model. I talked about the decimation of the pay TV ecosystem in the United States. So a move from a B2B model to a B2C model. Fox, Warner Brothers, Disney, they've had a real struggle in making this move. How has that been for your organization as you move? I said it during my presentation. There are fewer buyers and they're buying less. Except there are now infinite buyers. There are now 8 billion buyers on the planet Earth. They're called the human race, right? But that's a real reorientation for your organization, for your group, for your operation, the way you measure and bonus people. How has that been for you as a manager of people? How has it been for the organization?
Well, I think we are still in the middle of the transformation process, to be honest. We are not yet there. Luckily, we have forward-thinking leaders and team members. You mentioned Lynette, for example, who's running our B2C activities, which is fantastic. But again, we are a legacy business, and so it's a huge challenge for the whole leadership team in the organization to bring everybody on board and to become more entrepreneurial in their thinking. And also with regard to our corporate culture, you mentioned that earlier. Thank you for describing us as a risk-taking operation. Yes, we probably compared to our mothership, we are a bit more risk taker, but we need even to take more risks, not huge chunks, more small chunks, but a lot of them, so that we don't have kind of consolidated risks, but smaller risks.
And how's that risk taking and reshaping of your enterprise? How is that jiving with the mothership, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I think also our mothership is also in itself in a significant transformation and change process, and I think they absolutely have understood where they have to head to, and they have set up an internal organization which just cares about what you would call the creator economy. So they're now really thinking about not measuring just reach, they are measuring impact, quality, and acceptance. So these three ones probably that would fall under the headline of passion indicators.
Correct, yeah.
So they absolutely know that if they want to reach younger audiences and make them fans of the public broadcasting service, they have to think differently. Any new show which is being developed, and the producers out here know that, has to come along which is what is called a distribution plan. So you have to engage with communities in the prior to the launch of the show, but even in the development of the production of the show, the producers must think about...
You're challenging the producers to come in with a distribution and community plan.
Exactly, yeah.
When they come in to pitch the show.
Exactly, exactly. So think about, well, to put it in very simple terms, if you do a scripted show, would you like to put influencers into the show, or how to make the cast influencers? Invent Instagram channels for the cast where they present the show, or if you have cast with a high reach, use that reach to promote the show. Have behind the scenes content being produced while the whole show is in production. Have it ready for distribution prior to the launch, during the launch. So use this creator economy mechanics to find these audiences and to make them fans of that show.
We're going to throw it open to questions from the audience in a second, but while they think of what to ask you, and by the way, questions for me or for Markus, how has it been? How has the cultural shift been for, I mean, you're the commercial arm, you're not the broadcaster. But you have overseen a tremendous amount of change at your organization. ZDF itself is undergoing a lot of change itself. The ecosystem is. How has it been for your culture as shifts happen? Has it been easy for people to adopt to the change?
No. Change is never easy. And I think as human beings, we are afraid of change, or most of us, and which is psychologically very understandable. Some of us embrace change and see the opportunities, and it's the old rule for any organization. As a leader, you have to identify those people who love change, who embrace change, and use them as multiplicators for the change process in your organization. But again, having a very successful legacy business, we have really 30 years since the company has been set up where we have one successful year after the other. We, as a business, have never experienced a significant crisis. So that makes it probably even harder for us to go through the change process than for organizations which had ups and downs, because sometimes I refer to it as the change muscle. Our change muscle is probably undertrained, and we're working on that and are in the change gym to a certain extent.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is you've always taken some risks as a studio, but over time you forget about that. You forget about the risks that you've taken and the successes, and you kind of ease into a business model. And now this major change is staring you in the face, and it's dramatic. It's not just like, oh, sell to Netflix. It's try something complete. It's a whole new diet, right?
Yeah. Well, and thank you for reminding us of, yes, you have been successful and absolutely right, and we have to tell the story to everybody in our organization. But also part of the truth is that at least the first steps had more lab character, was kind of smaller experiments, was not huge scale. But now we have to scale, and that's the challenge. Yeah? As you said, the legacy business is declining on a steeper slope than the new business is growing.
All right, any questions out here in the audience for me or for Markus?
We have a microphone for you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, thanks for the inspirational talk and your insights also before. I was just wondering how you guys would look at the vertical dramas, because that's a trend we see quite a lot. So I work at a movie production company, and before I worked at Join, for example, and I'm not sure if the German market or the European market is ready for it. but are you guys looking into it, or what are your thoughts about it?
It's a great question. I'm really curious as what you think of it.
Well, I think you also made a remark. We have the same question mark. This is an Asian phenomenon, the vertical drama, but everybody is currently looking at it. And you try to find low-risk approaches. Currently, we are asking ourselves, can we re-edit pre-existing drama and make it short-form drama? So we're in the thinking process. And again, it's about testing and learning. But on the other hand, we have to be aware that this is a business model which has been invented, was successful in a different culture. So we also have to have a deep look at the mechanics, why it is so successful, for example, in China.
Yeah, so I have... What you're seeing is wherever the telenovela is successful, it's taking off. So Colombia has a massive vertical consumption, the vertical dramas, the microdramas as they're called. I think what you'll see is, first of all, most of microdrama right now is really a gaming practice. If you look at it, it's not really built like television or anything other forms of video. It's really Candy Crush. You watch a little bit, you get hooked, you have to pay to keep watching. I don't know that model will span the globe. I think that has its limits to it. I do think if you look at a show called Roomies, which was a vertical comedy, but not behind a paywall, only on TikTok and Instagram in the US, funded by a brand, and it's done pretty well. I think somewhere between the ad-supported vertical content model and the pay-as-you-go, I think there will be a norm there. I think people do want premium content on TikTok, Instagram, Snap, but it'll be interesting to see how the economics play out. I think crucially, though, what you hinted at, and I would say, is you're going to see a real adjustment down on the average per minute of content produced out there in the world, professionally produced, because that's what the market wants. They do want a little bit more disposable content, interestingly enough. Any other questions out there? Yep. She's going to run.
Hello?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the insights. I have a question on the environments, because you, Evan, talked a lot about the contents, but how do you look at algorithms? So in a world where YouTube, for example, has an algorithm that none of us understand, how do you look at the curation aspect? And then also for you, Markus, how do you at ZDF Studios look at that? Also cross-platform, streamers, YouTube.
I think there is this misperception that the algorithm is this monster that exists on its own and has its own brain. That's not how it works. It's a reflection of what the people are actually doing. It's not like there's somebody behind the scenes at YouTube flicking levers and saying, well, the algorithm's going to do this today. No, I asked Neil Mohan, who's the CEO of YouTube, I had him on stage at Cannes Lion, I said, why did you make the move to the television set? Why did you invest so heavily in the living room versus the phone or the tablet or the laptop? He said, that was not my decision. That was the consumer's decision. So the algorithm truly is, and we can take TikTok and the Chinese government out for a second, but the algorithm is truly a reflection of what the audience is looking for. That is innately true. And yes, there is de-emphasis and emphasis on certain things when things go awry, but for the most part, it is what the people want. And I think that is something we all have to kind of like think about. It is not some faceless monster driving the algorithm. It is the humans themselves. So I think we are seeing a reflection of the changing nature of humankind right in front of us on YouTube on a daily basis, and on TikTok, and on Instagram. And we have to be prepared for that as a society, as humans are now in control. It's chaos.
Yeah, but
what we get.
I think it's still the uncanny to a certain extent, the algorithm. Probably.
What does that mean?
I think it makes us feel still uncomfortable. Yes, you as an insider, say the algorithm is following the user patterns. It's kind of analyzing user patterns and adapting to what users want. Yes, but I don't think that the audiences out there and also media executives think in the same way. Because so in this regard, your question is really great. Thank you for that. Because asking about, let's say, the barriers in people's mind, why don't you put your content everywhere and do that? What you've shown on your charts, kind of doubling your audiences, because people think we are losing control over our content and putting it on a platform which is owned by some American big tech companies, and they might with a snip of their fingers change their strategy, and I'm completely dependent on them, what they do. And so if you're right with your statement, the algorithm is not a monster and some kind of Dr. Mabuse is pulling the levers in a dark lab, but it's really a method to explore what the audiences want. That's a completely different approach, but I don't think that's the common mindset.
Yeah, well, we have to get into this another time because we're about to run out of time. Yeah. But I do think putting your consumers at the center of everything you do, and it does feel like you, with your new direct-to-consumer business, that's what you're doing. It feels like that is always going to be appropriate in this new norm, is putting the set, rather than the executives making all the decisions, listening to the voice of the audience is what you're up to these days.
Absolutely, listening to the voice of the audience, trying and testing, and if the audience is not accepting what we're offering, we stop that offer. Yeah? So if we put out, for example,
if it doesn't work, stop.
Yeah, it doesn't work, stop. Yeah, so we have now a very, very dedicated mechanism to predict what channel should be doing, and then we're monitoring, and then if it's not fulfilling our predictions, of course we try to optimize it and find out why it's not doing. But if it's ultimately not working, in a pretty short period of time, we're not talking about tens of years, we're talking about probably a year or 18 months, we stop it and start the new channel, because again, as I said earlier, we don't have the recipe for success. We have to try and learn.
Test and learn. Yeah. That is the lesson for today. Test and learn. Thank you very much. This was a great conversation. I'll be around if you want to ask me any questions. I don't know if you will be.
I'll be.
But thank you so much for having me. It's been really great to see you all, and I'll be around for the next couple of days. Thanks so much.
Bye.